I really don't love the idea of a vision statement. So we've been told if you go into the interwebs, they're going to tell you need to come up with a statement, a vision statement and a mission statement. By the way, it frustrates me because the lawyer in me I still like my my definitions and my analytical skills. You can find both of those terms defined the exact same way. So is the vision the long-term goal, and the mission's how you get there? Is the mission? I mean, you can interchange those two words, and I kind of wrap that process up and say, okay, and also a statement isn't really a vision. If I asked you to describe a movie to me in a single sentence, could you actually give me the flavor of the movie and the plot and the scenery and what was happening? No, I mean, that's why we watch it. And yet we use this word vision to paint a picture, right? Like that's the goal. So to answer your question, 5 to 10 years, fine, or whatever time frame you want it to be. But it can't be a sentence. It needs to be a description. It needs to be a story. It needs to tell me, what is this? I want to know if I'm plopped into your movie 10 years from now or 5 years from now, what is it going to look like and feel like?
Welcome to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Alexander.
And today I am joined by Stephanie Everett. She leads the team at Lawyerist, where they coach lawyers on how to grow and sustain healthy businesses. She also hosts the Lawyerist podcast and is a co-author of the best-selling book, The Small Firm Roadmap Revisited. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. So first I want to hear about your journey at Lawyerist, because you didn't necessarily start as owner, but you became one. And I'm always fascinated by that process. So when you joined Lawyerist, what was your initial role?
I think my title at that time was community director. Maybe. Okay. I don't know. We keep changing. My title has changed a lot, so it's hard to keep up with. But at that point, just a little background. I'm a lawyer, so I had practiced law. I came out of law school, joined a big law firm because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. And then had the opportunity to start my own practice with a partner. And we grew that from a team of 2, it was us, and we brought my legal assistant, and we got up to a team of 20 in just under 7 years. And
wow.
Yeah, I was the managing partner, and I learned I had to rebuild the business several times in that kind of, growth. So people were coming to me, colleagues were coming to me saying, hey, how did you do that? How did you grow your business? And how are you guys so successful? And what does that look like? And in those conversations, I realized things that I had thought were maybe business common sense weren't so common. And I was like, maybe there's something here where people really do need help. Law school teaches you how to think like a lawyer. It doesn't really teach you how to practice, and it certainly doesn't teach you how to grow a business or run a business. So I shifted at that point, sold my interest in the law firm, and had gotten certified as a coach and started doing coaching and consulting work for lawyers. And eventually that kind of led me to the Lawyerist team, where they had a community built. They were providing information to lawyers. They actually started as a blog. The company started back in the day as a blog, ranting about why lawyers wouldn't use technology and getting revenue from display ads on the blog. That was the origin of the company. And they were like, they're like, hey, we have all these lawyers coming to us reading about how to run a better business. What if we offered them additional help? And so that's kind of how I got pulled in to come and really launch the coaching program.
Okay. So you first had your own law firm and grew that, which I'm sure, we're going to get into some of these principles that you now share with other lawyers. And I'm so excited to get there. But you joined Lawyerist. You start helping other folks grow their firms. How did you transition into ownership there?
Yeah. So at this point, just like you said, right, I had owned a business. And honestly, I'd also owned another business. My husband and I started the restaurant world. It doesn't really matter, except that, at this point, I'm a business owner. And I think of myself as a business owner. And I had started my coaching and consulting business. And when they approached me and we started having those conversations, at that point in my career, I live in Atlanta, and I was really just focused on the Atlanta market. And the Lawyerist brand had already established more of a national reputation because of the blog and the exposure they had through these other areas. In fact, the podcast already existed at that point. So for me, as I was looking at this opportunity, and my husband always says, always take the meeting. So I was like, all right, let's talk. Let's figure this thing out. I said, okay, this is my chance to maybe establish a national brand and to be known beyond just like the Atlanta region. The other thing I knew is at that point, I wasn't really interested in being a W-2 employee. Like that felt like a step back for me because I already had this entrepreneur's business bug. So when we started having those conversations, I was pretty upfront with them. Like, I'm excited about this opportunity. I think there's a lot in it for me and for you, but maybe I need to come in as an employee because I get like we should, people like to date before they get married. So, but this is my stated goal. I want to do it with an eye towards if I'm going to build this program and build this part of the business, I want to be an owner. I'll buy in and participate just like other owners would. So we had those conversations from the beginning. It probably took a year before we actually like did the deal and I officially became an owner, but that was always my plan.
All right. And they were open to that. How many owners did they have at the time?
2.
Okay. And so did you buy in or was it just like they saw the value and they were like, here you go?
I bought in. I mean, we discounted it for the value that I had already brought to the company in increasing the value of the company through the program that I started. So I think we came up with a valuation for the business and then said, okay, if you buy this many shares, this is how much it would be, but let's discount that, recognizing the work you've already done, which felt fair at the time. I mean, still feels fair.
And had that been part of the employment agreement? Was like, if I grow it by this much? No, so they were just nice.
Yes, I trusted them. Yes, that's a good point.
That's great. Well, and maybe part of it was also just being like, we got to keep this woman around.
Yeah, that's why I joke about my title, because the longer I was there, they were just like, okay, I started out just running the coaching program and launching that. It wasn't too long before that where I think we called my title president, and I was really running the business as the second in command with one of the founders. And then they came to me, and that founder was like, actually, I would like to go explore some other opportunities. Do you want to just run this thing? And so at some point then I was the CEO. And that
was within the year before you became part owner?
No. That's like in the couple of years after, sometime around. I don't remember. It all feel like it happened really fast. Now it's one of those things where you look back, you're like, when did that all happen? Yeah. But clearly we were invested, right? Like I was invested in this, and I had an interest in making this business successful. And then I think this part of the story. Then it wasn't long after that, within a year of me becoming the CEO, that we really started having talks with actually at that point 2 other companies. A company approached us about merging and acquiring us. At the same time, we had reconnected with some folks in the industry we had known for a really long time, kind of talking about, should we refer each other business? And that conversation quickly shifted into, actually, should we combine? So it was interesting. So we were sort of courting 2 merger opportunities at the same time, like organically. And eventually we did merge with the company that we had known for a while. We did that in January of last year. So that's been we're coming up on 2 years since we merged with that team as well.
And so how long was that after you became part owner of Lawyerist?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe 4 years. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I can't remember. But at that point, I had been an owner.
Fast. Yeah. This does sound really fast to me in terms of like, because business, we're talking, people are, if you look at some of these big longevity companies, it's like they're making 50-year plans and 100-year plans, and it can take a while. And you're talking in 5 years, you went from joining Lawyerist as an employee to becoming part owner, to becoming CEO, to merging with another company.
Yeah, I guess when
that's
you put
a lot
it like
of activity.
That. Yeah, but small businesses are like little speedboats. I mean, that's kind of what's fun about us, right? Like we can turn on a dime and we can make things happen, which is cool. I mean, it can be scary, but In that sense, it's kind of fun. And to give you some people, like, so when I talk about like the original Lawyerist team at the time of the merger, we were 9. So it's not like this was a huge team. We were doing very well. I mean, it was a solid company with great business plans. When we merged with the other company, we went from 9 to 90 plus team members overnight.
Wow.
So that was different.
And so what was your role after the merger?
Yeah, we didn't, it was confused. We weren't sure. Again, titles.
Okay.
Why everybody's always like, what's your title going to be? Because we didn't really need to have 2 CEOs, but for a long time, Lawyerist, we kept the brand. So we merged with the company we merged with is called Affinity Consulting Group. And they already had an established brand in the market, and Lawyerist had an established brand in the market. And, you know, you're in the marketing world, so you appreciate this. They really had different focus at that point. The ideal client for Lawyerist is really more solo small firm lawyers. Affinity had started with those clients back when they got their start 25 years ago, but they had gradually over time grown to serve more of that mid-sized large firm market. And honestly, I think some of the owners were like, you know, but we got our start with smalls, and we should still help those guys. Those guys need us. And yet it's really hard to be all things to all people. And so when you go in to a firm and you're talking to firms with hundreds of team members, the services you offer, it doesn't make sense for someone with 5. So one of the reasons this merger made a lot of sense to us is we could keep both brands public facing. And now we had a place where we could serve the solo small firm community and the big and large firm community, but differently. So we always say we're one team. We all get the same, you know, we all have the same name on our paycheck now, but we continue to serve both of those brands outwardly in a public facing way. They both exist. Whoops. So for a while, my title was just CEO of Lawyerist still, because it still existed, and we really didn't know what to call me for a while.
Right.
It was a challenge. And I was like, I don't know. I do work. Does it really matter what my title is? Do people
if you
care?
know what you're showing up to do, you know what your responsibilities are.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the kind of the reasons why the merger made sense, because it sounds like there were different services offered, different target audiences, and so you really could have just kind of referred to each other if each of you got a prospect who didn't fit. So what really was that thing that you guys were like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, let's do it?
Yeah, we got in a room together one day. Everybody flew to the Atlanta airport, which, lucky for me, I live in Atlanta, so I just drove down to the airport, and we got a conference room by the hotel. By the airport, and we were like, how can this make sense? What would we do differently if we were merged? And then we put some dollars, attempt to at least, behind those initiatives, and that was really how we decided, yes, merger makes sense. And really, if I think about where it boils down to, obviously we have the 2 different markets we're serving. At that point, it kind of helps to know a little history. Lawyerist was offering coaching to lawyers at scale. So we have a coaching community. We call it Lawyerist Lab, and lawyers can join that community. It's a monthly charge, and so they sign up. Right now, we're asking for 6-month commitments. It used to be a year, but during the pandemic, nobody could think in terms of years. So we're like, hey, commit to work with us for 6 months. That renews. And lots of lawyers stay with us for longer. Like they're on a 2 or 3 year journey, and they find us, you know, they're getting value from being a part of that community. So we have really unlocked serving people at scale in that way, and also recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Affinity got its start a little different, going into law firms and implementing technology. So really building out their tech stack. A lot of the law firm software you can buy is very customizable, and you might want it to work for you. Like what are your workflows? How are you billing people? And you can set it up in that very specific way. As part of that work, there's a lot of times people are trying to solve problems and they think it's a tech problem, but it's just a problem and you're looking for it. And so it naturally happened that Affinity started offering more strategic consulting work of what do you need to do to work better? And there may be a tech component of that, but often it's something different. And so Affinity continues to offer the tech services, but also was doing strategic consulting. And we were like, wow, we have opportunities here, because on the Lawyerist side, firms were coming to us sometimes saying, can you just build this thing for me? Can you just do it? And we didn't have the resources. A team of 9, we were pretty limited. So we're like, no, we just have our program. If you don't fit in our box, there's not much, So the merger allowed us, one, to have more resources. So now I can go to my small firms and say, listen, if you just want us to build it for you, if you just want us to do it, we can do that. And here's what that looks like. And now on the Affinity side, we can take that idea of a scalable recurring revenue model and apply it to the services that we do at Affinity and say, how can we serve our clients differently and better, by the way, and also with this different type of business model, which is a big change.
That makes a lot of sense. So a lot of these firms have the same 2 main problems. They need these 2 solutions. So there's a lot of overlap in your ability to serve them now. That totally clicks together for me. I'm really fascinated here by, you said that you were coaching at scale, and that sounds very difficult. Because in my experience at least, coaches, let's see, how do I say this? We at ClearBrand, we treat our services like manufacturing. And so what we try to do is say, how do we build this thing well, consistently? And we break it down into all the little tiny parts, and then we systematize each of those, kind of like a manufacturing plant, if you're building cars or something. And then we can switch things out. So we can do a different color, if we're comparing it to cars, we can do different color cars, we can do different windows, things like that. But really, we're looking at those tiny little pieces that add up into a website or into SEO. And we're seeing, how do we systematize those? But in my experience, coaching is very person dependent, which is what to me sounds difficult doing that at scale. You have to be really good at hiring. But you tell me about what that's like and how you were able to pull that off.
Yeah. And we do have different levels, and at our highest level, you get a coach. So you still have one-on-one interaction, that you have an assigned coach that you're working with. Sometimes we're doing more group workshops, and our lower levels, you don't have as much one-on-one. You still get one-on-one, because we didn't want to offer just a digital course, because I know how many people buy something and then never look at it. So we still have a one-on-one component, even for our lower level. You basically get a digital course on steroids. So you get all the digital course materials, but you have a quarterly one-on-one coaching session with a coach that helps you sort of roadmap out your quarter. And then you get monthly group calls. So you're not out there just hanging out. And so that program, as you could imagine, scales pretty easily.
Yeah.
The agenda for the one-on-one calls, for the quarterly calls, are all mapped out. We've got that locked down. So in about 90 minutes, we can get someone through that process. At our higher level, it's similar. It's that plus, right? So we do have more one-on-one coaching. But again, just like you were saying, how you break down a website, the problems businesses have, and again, we happen to focus on law firms because it's what I know, but this really is the same for most. Businesses are struggling with the same things. So I can map out now an agenda for the first 6 coaching calls are all going to be pretty much the same. We're going to cover the same materials we know, and that helps us get a baseline of what that client's struggling with. From there, we're going to pivot, and we're going to be a little bit more personalized in what initiatives they're working on each quarter. But we can do interesting things. Like, for example, instead of coming in, if people want this, they have the ability to pay a little bit more and get it, obviously. You might be familiar with the idea of an annual or quarterly strategic planning session, which is a fancy word for saying, let's get in a room and figure out what's working, what's not, and what do we need to prioritize and get done this quarter to move our business forward. That's all we're doing. Well, we can do that one-on-one with a firm. That's expensive and time-consuming. We actually do it in a group way. So every quarter we'll have a day set aside and we do it all virtually. I might have 50 different businesses, law firms show up in this online call, and we're going to walk them through that process of doing their strategic plan. We do that by coming together in a large room where we'll have some, instructions and some facilitation and Q&A. Then we break them out into their individual rooms and we'll say, okay, now you're going to go do this work specifically. Go to your room and do that. And we have coaches then pop in and connect with everybody throughout the day. So you're always having coaches come in and help you. And at the end of the day, we will have strategic plans done for 50 law firms.
Wow.
So that's one way we do it, I guess.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure that you also get some folks asking questions that somebody else in the room might not have thought of, but they really needed the answer to. So that makes a lot of sense. And so it sounds like you're mostly leaning into group work where you can, and then the one-on-one stuff is available, but
yeah. And they love the community work. I mean, I tell everyone, I used to think, there was a time in my career I would have told you, oh, one-on-one coaching is more valuable than group because, it's going to be personalized. But now, having been a participant in these kind of communities myself, the group is where it's at because, like you said, it's a place where someone's struggling with the same thing that you are, or maybe they struggled with it 6 months ago. And sometimes there's just a value in hearing, oh, that's not just me. I thought I was the only one thinking about this problem. So they love that. They love hearing and helping each other. The people who've already figured out something love being able to tell other people, hey, I got you. I've already figured this out. This is how you do it. And I don't know about other industries, but I'm a lawyer, so I can say this. It's like one of those things like, don't talk bad about my family, but I can say bad things. Okay. So I'm a lawyer. Sometimes we can be a tough bunch. Like you go to lawyer events and you very much feel like everyone's kind of puffing out their chest and trying to put on their good face about how awesome they are. And we've created a community. I've had people come up to me and say, I can't believe this. Like this has sort of restored my faith in our profession because I'm in a room with other lawyers and everyone's willing to be vulnerable and willing to admit that I don't have this figured out. I don't have to have my chest puffed up. I can just be myself and have really good, hard, honest conversations with other business owners and be like, wow, I'm struggling with this. Or how do you does it always feel this way? Does this ever change? Or whatever it is they're struggling with. And I think that's a really cool thing that we get to do.
That's awesome. I mean, you get components of a mastermind there as
for
well.
Sure.
I've seen folks charge a whole lot of money for a mastermind with hardly any of that coaching. So you said that a lot of businesses struggle with the same stuff. So let's go there. You help law firms grow. What does it take?
I mean, we try to use all these fancy words, but at the end of the day, you need a goal, a vision of what you're trying to build, because unfortunately, too many lawyers kind of think, well, I just want to be my own boss, so I'll just start a business. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I don't think being your own boss is, it's not as much fun as everyone thinks, but also, I mean, at the end of the day, hopefully you're building a business. What do you want this thing to be? Do you want it to grow to 20 or 40 or 2? Like, there's no right or wrong answers, but as your coach, I need to know where we're headed. Mm-hmm. So, and so does your team, by the way. They want to know what this is going to look like and what's in it for you. So really thinking about what is that you're trying to do. If all you want to do is create a job for yourself, okay, but that's not very exciting as a, proposition. But is there a need in the market, and how are you going to build this business that fills that need and creates its own little special mark in the world? Because that's what people are excited about too. People want to know that their job matters and that they're making a difference. And the good news for lawyers is we're usually the helpers in some way or form. We're helping other people. We're helping clients. So that part of our story is usually easier to tell. But I think lawyers kind of forget about, what do I want this business to be? Whereas if you were in other industries, That's probably a given, especially if you're trying to get financing or any kind of funding. Like you have to have a reason for your business to exist. Lawyers sort of get the benefit of anybody can just go hang a shingle and say, okay, I have my own business now.
Mm-hmm.
So we do need to work with them sometimes on like, what is this thing? What do you want it to look like? Once we have that set, we need a path for how to get there. And that's where the planning comes in. You can't boil an ocean. So what are you going to focus on first? And then next and next and next. And that's that iterative process. And then that's really where the elements come in. So team, building a team, we're very focused on building values first, values-based teams. Like it's not consultant speak. It really matters. And we see that. And then as you know, how do we think about getting our clients, getting the right clients, serving our clients? And then from there, when you get into serving your clients, you're probably going to need systems and technology and processes to do that. Healthy profits, that should be a part of every healthy business. And then the last component we really talk about is healthy owner, because we are dealing with small businesses typically. The owner is a big component of it. And that includes not just like your physical and mental health, which is, by the way, a big part of it. Are you able to take vacations? Are you able to get away from your business and it continues to run without you? But also thinking about more long-term, everything from an emergency plan to succession planning. So we're trying to teach these owners that this thing has kind of a life without you. And what do you want it to look like when you're ready to walk away from it at some point? Presumably you are. So.
Okay. There's a lot there. I've got a lot of questions about all this. So let's since we're on the owner piece, what do you think? So you mentioned a few things there, but let's dive a little deeper into being a healthy owner. So being able to rest is part of that. Do you find that there's kind of a one prescription that fits everybody, or is it, well, if you don't like taking time off, then don't? Or is it like, well, you really need to take 2 weeks or a month per year? Yeah.
Everyone needs time off. Like, I know, like, I love to work, if that's not obvious.
Me too.
I love it. And I have to force myself sometimes. Like, I'm probably I probably am a workaholic because I enjoy it. Like, it's just like, this is fun. I love what I do. And I need time away. I think everybody does. There's research now that backs it up that says our brain needs that time to rest. Our bodies need the time to rest. But here's the other good news. I don't know about you, but I have found every time it's usually when I'm away that I have this amazing idea from my business. Like, your brain doesn't stop working, but you need to shift. And it's healthy for your business for you to be away. Like, it requires your team to step up or for you to figure out what it is that only you can do so that you can maybe put a process around it, right? There's lots of good reasons to get away, but I think, yes, fundamentally, everyone has to get away.
Okay. So owners got to be able to, and I totally agree with you about this. I think that owners often fix a lot of little things that they don't think about. And then when they leave, those little things become bigger things. They kind of show their heads a little bit more. Plus that boredom is something that I think is tough these days. And boredom's what I've seen some of that research around that you were talking about, where that's where your brain builds memories, is when you're bored. And when you have that freedom for the epiphanies and things, but you can't be working to experience that. And you can't be scrolling social media either or watching movies. You've got to do something, stare at the clouds or something. Okay.
Yeah.
So owners have got to rest. What about what else does it take for an owner to be a healthy and good owner?
Maybe it's a component of this, right? So obviously you need to rest, but I think you need daily rest too. And so what your daily routine looks like can vary. There's a lot of people out there who write about this amazing morning routine and get up at 5 a.m. and express gratitude and do the affirmations. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not one of them. Like I wish I could be. I have
Yeah.
moments where I'm like, I'm going to do that for sure this time. And I fail miserably. So now I give myself that grace and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sleep until 7 and then I'm going to get up and get ready and I'll start my day. And I still think I have a pretty good routine, but I don't know that much changes between 5 a.m. and 7. So I'm going to let myself go. But I think another key thing, and when we think about like, what do we have to do every day when we show up? Most people I know, especially small business owners, we are wearing too many hats. So people always come to me and they're like, I just need some time management hacks. What are your productivity hacks? This word hack has got us all thinking that there's little magic things we can do throughout the day and suddenly that's going to unlock all the tasks and they magically get done. And there are some good time management and productivity habits and muscles that we should build for sure. But at its heart, are you doing the things that you should be doing? And the answer is probably no. You're doing a whole bunch of things that you have no business doing. Either because you're not good at them, you don't like them, or they're things that other people could just easily do. And we tell ourselves these stories that we have to be the ones that do them for other, whatever reason, or we can do it faster. And maybe we can do it faster, but also there's value to just having other people do them. And that's a hard role. There's a couple of things that happen as our businesses build. And this kind of falls into this story, right? When we first start our business, most of us were probably delivering those services. Lawyers, they're doing the lawyering. I don't know your whole story, but maybe you were building websites when you first started and you're like, I'm the technician. I do this thing. And then as our business grows and we bring on the team members, we have to shift our focus to no longer being the only one that takes care of the clients, but to build a team of people who take care of the clients. And necessarily our focus has to shift to building the team and building this processes and the components that are going to make our team successful because they're going to be client facing. And that is a really hard shift to make. And I think a lot of people get stuck there. And somehow that kind of feeds into them doing all these things. And so a lot of times when owners are first starting to work with us, we see they're completely overwhelmed, maybe burnt out, and they're looking for quick fixes when really they have to like really step back and evaluate what do you do day to day and what can we get off your plate.
I love that so much. Just that. You mentioned earlier that a lot of folks will start a business because they want to be their own boss. And they're not thinking about this. There's certain things that almost every owner is going to have to do. One of which is build a team. And there's some admin work and you can outsource or hire for a lot of these things. But I think that team building piece is basically unavoidable. And so if a person starts a company because they think that they can do the job better than their current person, their current boss, their current company, and they want to be their own boss, they're in for a world of hurt eventually when they realize that's not what we're going to spend a lot of time doing at some point. That's great for freelancers. Freelancers can do the work all day. But if you're building a company, and that goes back to the vision. So that's what I'm curious about. Next here is that vision of what are you building? So if you're building a freelance company, fine, great, you can do all the work you want. So how do you recommend people kind of develop their vision? How far out are we thinking? Is this 5-10 years? Does it matter? How detailed do we get?
5 to 10 years is fine. I think I don't have strong opinions about. I know some people struggle when they try to come up with 10-year targets. That can feel too far away and they just, but some point in the future, what is this thing that we're going to build? And then obviously we back down into 1 and 3-year goals. So, and then I really don't love the idea of a vision statement. So we've been told if you go into the interwebs, they're going to tell you need to come up with a statement, a vision statement and a mission statement. By the way, it frustrates me because, the lawyer in me likes, I still like my my definitions and my analytical skills. You can find both of those terms defined the exact same way. So is the vision, the long-term goal, and the mission's how you get there? Is the mission? I mean, you can interchange those two words. And I kind of wrap that process up and say, okay, and also a statement isn't really a vision. If I asked you to describe a movie to me in a single sentence, could you actually give me the flavor of the movie and the plot and the scenery and what was happening? No, I mean, that's why we watch it. And yet we use this word vision to paint a picture, right? Like that's the goal. So to answer your question, 5 to 10 years, fine, or whatever time frame you want it to be, but it can't be a sentence. It needs to be a description. It needs to be a story. It needs to tell me, what is this? I want to know, if I'm plopped into your movie 10 years from now or 5 years from now, what is it going to look like and feel like? What's got me excited? So who are we serving? How are we serving them? Does that feel different? What are we known for? What's our reputation? What does the team look like? Maybe in terms of size, you may not know exactly, but is it 2 or 20 or 200? What's unique about the team? Why do people want to be on the team? Why do they stick around? Is there something important to us? Like for me as an employer, I said this to my team this morning. I want to pay them as much as humanly possible. Like I want my team to be rock stars and I want them to feel very taken care of. And I want there to be wellness components. I mean, like I do envision this la la land of, where we do great work, but we have just this amazing place to work. So what does that look like? When my husband started his business, it was really important to him that he had 100% employer paid benefits, because most of the people who come to work for him have only worked in the restaurant world where they've never even had health insurance. And so that was important to us. So it's in our vision statement that we will always provide benefits for our team. Is there something like that that's important to you? And then, you can talk about your technology and how you serve clients, all of these things. But I want to see all of that in the vision, because that's going to give me the clarity that we need. The clearer we can be on that, the easier it's going to be to map it out. The quick note here that, because this is what gets us in trouble, especially for my lawyers, we're also perfectionists. And so I have seen people get stuck. I've seen people be like, I need to have this perfect vision. I need to have it all figured out. And I don't. And so they stay in stuck land for like months and months because they're trying to figure this vision out. And so while I want as much detail as possible, there's also got to be space for that to kind of evolve and grow over time. And so I tell people, this thing can be in bullet points. And I have one of my attorneys that I work with. I love using her as an example, but right now her vision statement is a list of bullet points. Here's what you will see and here's what you won't see. And the bullet points are things like, when you come into our office, you'll see, you won't see lawyers in suits. You're going to see lawyers casually dressed with tattoos and body piercings. They do immigration work. So it's important. So it says things like, you're going to see pictures of their kids and the sports figures that they help get into the country. You're going to see pictures of our team marching in protests because they have a policy bend to their company, and it's very important to them that they're advocating for immigration reform. And what you won't see in our office are people working on Fridays after 3, or, what you won't see in our office is Times New Roman. And that always cracks me up because like only lawyers think in fonts. But nothing else about that person I just described. But I would guess, you have a little bit of a picture of what it must be like to work at this business and what this firm is about? Yeah. So you don't have to have it but that gives you the flavor of where they're going and what they're building. And she goes on with some more things, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for when I'm helping people work with their vision.
I love all this. This is a huge relief. I've refused to do a vision because the way that they're typically defined is very, very difficult for me. Where, imagining 5 to 10 years out and they're asking, typically it's like, well, what's your revenue? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's possible. There's too many variables. And what if we add services? What if we remove services? What if we change what we do? What if we change team? I mean, there's all sorts of things that have made that difficult for me. But this stuff, I have a lot of clarity on, and I've never written it down because nobody has that I've come across had defined a vision this way. So right after we're done here, I'm going to go. We've got a culture document that goes through. We do have a mission and values and all that stuff, and I'm going to go add to the vision because I like those things, and those are also for me as the founder and owner. They're what continually drive me. They're the reason why I started a company, was to build a space. One of my big motivations is to provide a place to work where people don't hate their boss. And that's something that I want to be true at scale when there's multiple levels of management and all this. Because we spend so much time at work, it's like nobody wants to go to a place where they hate working, you know?
Right.
So how do we work hard and also enjoy the process? And that's the kind of stuff that I've held, you know, and that's what sounds like belongs in a vision.
Yeah. And maybe, you know, I would challenge you that, of course, services may evolve, but you probably have an idea of what kinds of services. I mean, you could put some guardrails up, and that's what the vision's for too. It becomes your guardrails as an owner. So my husband's business is easy to use in this regard. He owns a craft beer distribution business. It sounds cooler than it is. Just trust me that yes, it's craft beer, but it's still work. It's still business. Yeah. But he's had opportunities over the years, for example, one time somebody came to him and wanted him to sell bottled water in a bottle that was 100% like compostable, right? Like every part of it broke down. And he was like, this sounds so cool. Like, we should totally do this. And I was like, well, hold on. You know, you sell craft beer. Does this, like, we can always change our vision, but are the places where we're selling beer the same places where people are going to want to buy this kind of water? Or, you know, and so we had to work through, and it turned out it wasn't in line with our vision. This product sounded cool, but it wasn't going to get us closer to what we were trying to build. And so there are times where you can also use your vision as an owner, because we know a lot of owners and founders probably like some shiny things. Like squirrels are probably to our benefit. It's what allowed us to, you know, maybe take some risks and get here. We saw the things other people don't see. And yet if we're not careful, we could easily get distracted and find ourselves getting off pace. So the vision can, you know, even if you don't, of course you can stay open to new services, but it's like, okay, we're helping people build their digital presence or, you know, however you define that. So maybe you would turn down, I don't know, opportunity to sell water.
Yeah. So for us, it might be something like, you know, we help our clients grow their companies, and we're not going to do stuff that doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Am I hearing you right there?
Yeah. And I think you can start massaging it over time. So you can see, I mean, maybe an example too, like I was doing a brainstorming session with my business coaches this week. We were just talking about their professional development and their growth. And a lot of them are really excited by this idea of wellness that we've been talking about. And somebody was like, you know, should we be like life coaches for lawyers? And I took that in, and I haven't made a decision, by the way, but I'm sitting there, but in my head, I'm like, does that fit? If we were to do, I don't even know what that exactly means yet, but if we were to offer some kind of more life coaching or executive coaching, maybe for lawyers, does that get us closer to the vision we're trying to create, or does that feel like a sidestep? Now, I haven't decided yet. I want to sit with it. I want to process it and give it the time it deserves. But I think that's where a vision can be those guardrails for us. And doesn't mean you have to, you can change the vision, by the way. You just want to do it intentionally. You want to be like, okay, I see this opportunity. Let me go after it. Not wake up one day and be like, what am I doing? Where did we end up here?
Yeah. Well, I love that. So you want to be clear enough that you can make decisions using the vision. And if it's not going to help you say yes or no, is it clear enough? That's a great guideline there.
Good. Nice.
So let's go to the team. I think that was the next part of what you mentioned. and building a team. You mentioned values for a team. Walk me through what that looks like.
Yeah. Every company has core values. Maybe you haven't discovered them and written them down, but every team has them. If you realize it or not, they're there. And so we want you to be intentional about it. You need to figure out what they are. What is your special sauce? Think of it. Your values are really like the rules of the sandbox, or how you want people to make decisions when you're not around. And so they become really the guardrails and guidelines for our team as well. So we have a process we take people through. I love doing it. It's fun, but to figure that out. So a lot of times, but there's just some questions. This is on our website for free. It's like, if an easy exercise to do is think about your ideal team player. What makes them so great? Why are they A+ all-stars? And then also, what makes the ones that don't work out not? Like, what are they missing?
Mm-hmm.
And you put all those words out on a sheet and you see some themes emerge, and then we kind of have fun and we play with that and we test that. And the things to avoid are what we call table stakes values. So people will start the process and they'll say things like, oh, we need to be ethical, or we need to be truthful. Of course. Like, that's non-negotiable. Those are non-starter. Of course they do. Nobody wants you to advertise. Nobody wants to go to a restaurant that advertises it's vermin free. We just expect it. And so we do the same thing with our values. We don't want values around things that are just a given. We really want to hit on what's that special sauce. When we do this right, it then allows us to test and hire and attract the right people on our team. So it becomes a hiring tool. It becomes a management tool, so that we can help people get where we want them to be. Unfortunately, sometimes we use it to decide if people aren't the right fit for our tool. And so an example of that, our team, we love to iterate. Like, we're constantly pushing ourselves. How can we do this better? How can we change this up? Can we use this new tool? Like, we're testing, we're experimenting, we're doing it differently the next time, right? This is like, and it's constant. And I had a team member a couple years ago come to me and just say, hey, this quarter, can we just not try anything new? Can we just keep everything the same? And I realized in that moment that, this is a great person. There's nothing wrong with this person. And yet the way we work probably feels pretty chaotic to her. Like, she just wants to come in. So there are people like this that come in and do the same job day in, day out. They know what's expected and they're like, I got it and I'm doing my thing. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with that, right? Like, there is a place, and there are lots of places where that's exactly the kind of team members we need. And yet that person will feel terrible on my team. You would probably be miserable because you'd be like, Stephanie, stop. Like, right? Like, stop with the changes. Stop with the ideas. Why are we always trying to, we just fixed that thing and now you want to make it even better? Like, come on. And so that was a good aha moment for me to realize, okay, when we're hiring people, we need to be we got to be brutally honest with the people we're hiring, because even to show them, I got to tell people now, hey, I'm not telling you this just because I'm trying to recruit you, but like, if you don't like a very fast-paced work environment where I'm going to push you and things are going to change and we're going to be constantly improving, you will be miserable. So don't just answer and tell me the things you think I want to hear. We got to come up with a hiring process where we can really test it. And then at the end, we also have to be able to just say to the person, this is what it looks like. And if this is going to make you miserable, you do not take this job. It's the last thing I want you to do.
And I think that the beauty of that is there's another place that will fit some people better. And so if we have that clarity, it's going to decrease their misery and ours from that misalignment.
Yeah. It's hard. Hiring is hard. And a lot of people get it wrong. We often, get it. We often kind of approach hiring a little too late. Like, we usually are doing it when we're really overwhelmed. And so we're fast. We think, I've got to find someone. I don't care. I see all these red flags, or I see these things that I'm not sure, but I just need someone. How many, we've all done it. Well, we just need someone. We'll figure it out. But bad hires are expensive. It's hard. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So it's better if we slow down, really think about, what do you need on your team? Not just like, so these qualities, what are our core values? But then also think about the role that you need. We even question people like, do you need someone who can create from blank paper? Because I've learned this along the way too. I have a great team member. I love working with her. And we finally had the epiphany when we had a discussion because something wasn't clicking. And we realized she's really great at taking something that exists and making it better. But if I gave her like a blank project and just said, go create this, she just got stuck, right? So when you think about the role that you're hiring for, I think a lot of times we just think, okay, I need a legal assistant, whatever, fill in the blank of the job. And we think about those job duties. I mean, obviously core values have to go a piece into this, but also what else do you need? Is this a job that requires someone to create new things, or are they improving on new things? I mean, so we have to think a little differently about our role. And then the fun part comes, which is we have to write a job ad, and it is an ad, as you know, it's marketing. And so how are we going to attract those right candidates? Because right now you're sitting there and the whole world is a potential employee for you. And your job is to figure out of everyone, who is the right next person for this role. And that can be hard, but it is much easier if we write an ad that attracts the right people. And so we want to be upfront about why someone should come work with us, what's in it for them. A lot of times we write ads based, as you know, story brand, kind of same concepts. Like in this case, my future employee is the hero of the story. A lot of companies write job ads that are just like, we're great, we're great, we're great. And there is a place for that. But we want to start with, hey, you're an awesome employee, but you might be a little bit unhappy with your job. Here's why you should make a jump. Here's why you should come join this team over other teams, because we have this thing that will help you in your career. And when we start, it's just a slight shift in how we start the ads, but it makes a huge difference. And then we can still tell the story about ourselves and why they should want to work here.
Because that's important to, even if you position them as the hero, that's still important. Am I going to like this place? That's a question that everybody who's looking for a job has.
Yeah.
So where do you put these ads? Where are you advertising these jobs?
I mean, we've had a lot of luck lately on LinkedIn, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I know some people, whether you do, there's Indeed, there's all these different job boards, but, get the word out there, but then I don't know, maybe I'm in my little LinkedIn rut right now, but we're doing just fine with it. Yeah. So we'll stick with it.
We've had great success on LinkedIn as well. Definitely better than Indeed, at least recently.
Yeah. And here's the cool things too. If you do your ads right, it's like you can hide little, what do they call it? Like when you just hide little nuggets in the ad that you want to hear then from the people. So I had one law firm, they are high-end estate, in high-end divorce, right? So they're dealing with people with a lot of money. And by the way, they have a lot of weird stories because you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
And this law firm was like, hey, you need to know that we curse like sailors, like F words, every other words flying around the office. That's our culture. And I was like, great, let's put that in the ad. So we did. In the job posting. We're like, if hearing raunchy stories about really wealthy people doing weird stuff as part of their divorce and hearing F-bombs get dropped every other word in the office offends you, please do not apply. Like, let's just spell it out, because we don't want to hide this from people. And then they get in the office, and this was a firm in the South where they, and somebody might get in and be like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Right. And so here's the beauty of that. We ask people, don't send us a cover letter, but answer these questions. We have them ask, it's typical stuff like, why does this, based on what you've read so far, why are you a good fit for this role in our team? And the person we ultimately hired responded and was like, I have found my effing people. Like,
Yeah.
And that's what we want.
That's awesome. That's great clarity. So what's after team?
Clients.
Yeah. All right. And that's about getting clients. So walk me through the advice that you give some businesses on setting that up and getting the clients.
I know I feel the pressure here with the expert, but we start where you start. Who is it we're trying to attract? Who is that ideal client? Not so much focused on demographics that don't matter. I mean, diversity is a big part of everything we do. And I think sometimes if we paint a picture, like, let's just be honest of like, I don't know, if it were me, like if you're like, my ideal client is Stephanie, a white woman who lives in the suburbs and drives an SUV and goes to soccer practice with her kids, you could be missing out on opportunity. So while we definitely think about all those things, we're really trying to help people like, okay, who is this person you're trying to serve and what problems are they struggling with? And then where do they go for help and information? And I think, marketing sounds really complicated until we answer those 3 questions. And then you realize that's kind of it. That's your basis of your marketing strategy.
And I think I just want to comment on the demographics that don't matter piece. That's part of our focus as well. I've seen so many customer avatars when we start with a client and they went down these deep rabbit holes and descriptions of how the person is thinking. And, my question is generally, well, if they don't think that. So we had one who the customer avatar that another agency had created included, the CEO who he wants to be the next Elon Musk. My question is, okay, well, if you have a CEO who comes to you and this person does not want to be the next Elon Musk, are you going to tell them to go somewhere else? Well, no. Okay. Let's take that out.
Right.
But what you're talking about, who are these people? Problems, where are they is huge, so you know where to advertise. I love all of that. That's great. Okay, so keep going here in terms of getting those clients.
Yeah, I mean, here's the beauty. So then the other kind of basic advice I give is like, stop with the random acts of marketing, which is what most people do. They just throw out a bunch of stuff they read about or see and see what sticks. I'm like, let's get strategic. So people will come to me and say things like, do I need to be on TikTok? And I'm like, I don't know. Are your ideal clients on TikTok? Is that because if they're not, like, I'm not on TikTok. So if I'm your ideal client, good news. Don't be on TikTok because I'm not hanging out there. And so I think that relieves a lot of pressure from people where they're like, oh, cool. I don't have to do all these things. And as you know, so we work with them a little bit on where they need to be and focus. And then it takes time, right? So we just try to remind people this isn't going to be built overnight and you got to keep at it and you got to keep doing it. And that's frustrating and hard, but you can do it. And then the fun thing comes because the other part of clients is now they're here. And so obviously we work with them we can work with people on how to sell and how to increase their conversion rate and get people excited about joining, which a lot of lawyers, especially that I work with, and this probably goes for other business owners too, they don't like selling. They don't want to be a salesperson. My father was a car salesman. So I also feel like I can say things like that because, nobody wants to be a car salesman and people are scared to talk about money. So lawyers, especially, we're worried about telling clients how much this is going to cost them. And unfortunately, when we do that, that impacts that idea of healthy profits because clients come to lawyers. They don't know if they're buying, they have no idea. And unfortunately for lawyers who still bill by the hour, I'm on a mission to change that. But for the ones who do, they'll just say things like, well, we're going to need some retainer money. So, give us a $5,000 retainer. We're going to charge you by the hour. You'll get bills every month. Well, what did the client just hear? I mean, they think, okay, so this is going to cost me $5,000. Well, an average contested divorce in today's world I think the average right now is between $20,000 and $30,000.
Wow.
Per spouse, by the way.
Jeez.
So make up, if you're married right now, go home. It's probably not that bad. Whatever you're fighting about, get some help. But if you don't realize that, like, how do you budget as a client? How are you going to budget for that? And how are you going if you don't know going in that that's what you should be expecting, And lawyers are scared to tell people that because they're worried if they tell them the truth, they're not going to get hired and someone's going to go down the street and hire somebody else who's just going to say, yeah, I'm going to bill you my hourly rate and you'll get, and so we don't have these conversations. But that sneaks up on us as business owners because now what happens, we start billing them, they start getting these invoices, and at some point the client freaks out and you have to have the call about, hey, I either can't afford this or I had no idea, and they're blindsided by it. And then we have a collections problem. Only now for lawyers, you're in the case, and for lawsuits, a lot of times you have to ask the judge's permission if you want to get out, and the judge can say no, and like you are stuck representing this person, and not get paid, and you may have a payment issue. That doesn't always happen, but that is a real possibility that we fight against. So we really have to train people to have those conversations up front, have a way to talk about it, educate our clients, because now we're moving into sales and onboarding. So we want to set our clients up for success. We want to teach them how they can help themselves have a great relationship with us. So what does that look like? And I go so far, and this kind of even flows back into healthy owner. A lot of the lawyers I work with now, we don't take unscheduled phone calls, right? And we don't check our email all day. Like I'm finally got them out of there. Remember I said there are some productivity tips that we do recommend, and that's one of them. We got to have distraction-free work time. You need to have focus time because nobody can multitask. The research says it's just not a thing that exists, and our brain function slows down when we try to do it. So now if we set ourselves up by telling this new client, here's how you're going to work with me. This is what success looks like. You have access to my calendar link. So if you need to schedule a call with me, you can just go in. And by the way, you can tell me what's on the agenda so that I can actually prep for the call. And that's a way, but just don't call me randomly. And then I have to call you back. And then you tell me what the issue is. And I say, okay, let me go figure that out. And then I have to call you back. And right, like that's a lot of wasted time. If I have a blog article that I give all my clients that I say plagiarize the heck out of this and use it with your clients, and it basically teaches clients how I need uninterrupted time to focus, and this is how we're going to communicate during the course of our relationship for phone calls and meetings and whatnot and emails. And now my clients brag about the fact that I don't take their calls when they call me, right? Like we can flip these things into positives, but we have to do it intentionally, which is why we have to build out those systems and processes and think through every step of this. Because if you do, you can solve for these, because people are sitting here saying, my clients will never go for that. And I'm like, they actually do. You just have to set it all up and educate them, and then they get excited about it.
Totally. So I don't think we do as good of a job as communicating this to our clients as you're talking about here, but we basically do the same thing. And I don't even answer my phone. It doesn't ring. I've told my family to call me through a different app rather than the phone. And I've just turned my phone notifications off. I don't get any noises from my phone ever. And it is so freeing, number one. So love that you tell people this. And our clients don't care, as long as we're available, and we can have those meetings and all that. So I'm a success story here, even though this is the first time I'm hearing this from you. We've done it and it's great. I think everybody should do it. And
you have a client portal, and you kind of set out, hey, here's how you're gonna get updates from us, and this is how you're going to know what's going on with your matters. So you're doing it. Maybe you just need you could put a little icing on top to make it even better.
Yeah. I think we need to be more clear about the booking link is what I was as I'm applying what I'm learning here, which I hope everybody's doing. How can we improve based on what you're saying? And I'm like, okay, let's make our booking link way more easy to get to. Okay. So we've got clients. I had a question on sales.
Okay.
Because that's part of what you said that you help with, other than, folks needing to talk about money, even though they don't want to. Any other just kind of big tips that you feel like everybody should be applying?
Yeah, I think we work up in our mind that sales is this weird, hard thing. And it's just a conversation. And at the end of the day, somebody needs help, and you know how to help them. Mm-hmm. So if we keep that in mind, it kind of disarms the whole process. Like you don't have to go in and be weird, sales dude. Like that's not a thing that
Right.
needs to exist. But instead, when I do a sales call, as I know you do the same, I know you do the same process because you did that with me. It's like, what are we struggling with? Like, what's the vision? Like, what are you trying to create first?
Mhm.
Tell me what the goal is. Where are you now? What's got you stuck? Obviously, if it's a law firm, we might tweak these questions, but
Mhm.
and then, okay, I think I have a sense, what would it look like if you weren't stuck anymore? That sounds pretty cool. Okay, good news. I unstick people for a living. I actually can help you with that. Is that something you'd be interested in? You want to do it? Here's how it works, and
Mhm.
and that in a nutshell is the basis for every sales call, I think, pretty much.
Love that. How do you help folks get off of hourly? I mean, especially lawyers. Like, I love that mission of yours to help lawyers get off of hourly. How do you help them do that?
Yeah.
What's
So,
the alternative billing?
well, most people go to flat fees or subscriptions. That's
Mhm.
in a nutshell where we're headed. But sometimes it requires them think differently about the value that they provide. So we have them figure out, what kind of help are they providing? Can it look differently? And then how can you charge differently? Lawyers like billing by the hour is so dumb for so many reasons. I mean, it doesn't help clients. It doesn't help lawyers, especially now. Like my latest talk, one of my titles that I've been giving is like, AI is finally going to kill the billable hour. Is your business model ready? Because if you're billing by the hour, what's your incentive to really leverage these new technology tools that are coming out that are going to allow you to do your work faster, easier, better? And if you're billing by the
Right.
by the hour, the answer is none. So if I just took a task that used to take me 10 hours and got it down to 10 minutes, am I getting the value of that? And maybe you spent time building the tool, but if all I get to bill for is the 10 minutes where I put it into the input and got the out, I don't get value for that. The other thing, nobody's paying you for the time that it takes you to do a problem. So one of the examples we give in the book is my husband and I were trying to get a business like a special, his license. We had to get through the Department of Revenue for the beer business. And so for some reason it was getting held up. Who knows? I did my research. I told my husband, I was like, this is dumb, but it's going to cost us $2,500. It's worth it. I said, it's worth it to spend $2,500 and just get this business license through so we can get running. So I did my research because I wanted to figure out who has the best relationship with the people at the Department of Revenue in this, this little area that does the alcohol licensing for distributors. That's who I want to hire. Now, was I hiring them for how long it was going to take them to solve the problem? No, I wanted the person with the best relationship who'd been working with them for years, who had the person's name on speed dial on their cell phone that I needed, that was holding up my application. And that's exactly what happened. But the attorney never had a conversation with me about what this value, what it was worth, whatever. They just billed me by the hour. Now, I had just finished practicing law at this point, so I was, even today, I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. When I'd have calls with the lawyers, I'd be like, let's get off as fast as we can. I know the clock was ticking. I'll draft my, I'm a lawyer. So I was like, I'll do my first draft of the affidavit. I'm trying to limit the exposure on this bill. And it worked, by the way, because we got the thing resolved within 2 weeks, like not even 2 weeks. The guy called the woman. She was like, I just need this thing. He was like, great. Can we give it to you? Yes. Boom. Done. Right. I get the bill and it was $937. And I am happy because obviously it was less, but I remembered thinking, gosh, that guy just left money on the table because I wasn't hiring him for the 0.1s and 0.2s. By the way, that's 6 and 12 minute increments. That's what lawyers bill in.
Okay.
To solve I was hiring him to solve the problem. I was hiring him for the reputation. I was hiring him for years of experience and relationship building that he had done with this administrative official who I needed help from. That was the value of what he provided to me. And I had already said in my mind, this is worth $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
But he never had that conversation with me. So he billed me $937.
Right. Wow. And that, I mean, I heard a story. I don't know if this is true, but it's kind of the same thing of like somebody like Van Gogh or somebody sitting on a bench and somebody says, "Hey, can you draw me a picture?" And he spins one up in a few minutes, says that'll be $10,000 or something. And they say, "Well, it only took you a few minutes." And he says, "Yeah, but it took me years to get to this point."
Exactly.
You know? Yeah. Wow. All right. So we've gotten through healthy owner, vision, team, clients. Where do we go? What's next there?
I mean, there's only two other components in our model, which is the systems and technology. And we kind of touched on this, but you need to operationalize your business, right? So that might be, like you said, like mapping out for our team, how do we do these specific processes? Mm-hmm. For me, it's all about how do we deliver a consistent client experience? So if I have an agenda for what we cover every time we do a first call with a client, I can feel confident that my team is going to cover the same things versus, if I just leave it to their whim of, did they remember to go over the communication policy and best practices? Were they in a good mood that day and so they gave really amazing client service? Or were they feeling crappy and so they just got off the call as quickly as could and left out half the things that I would want them to cover? So systems and our processes, one, it's a way to make sure we're delivering that consistent quality to our clients. It's what allows us to go on vacation and feel good, or anyone to go away, right? Like if we have these things on lock, people can step away from their jobs and other people can jump in and keep the process going and keep it moving. So there's lots of reasons to do this. It freaks people out, intimidates them, because now they think, I got to create a whole operations manual. Like, when do I have time to do that, Stephanie, on top of all these other things you told me I have to do? Mm-hmm. And my answer these days, it's really great, is it's simple. There's some cool AI tools out, but even like screenshot video, we use Loom on our team a whole bunch, and now they have an AI component that if you record, like you basically just record your screen and say, okay, I'm going to run payroll now and I'm going to do this and this and that, and you narrate it. You hit end on that recording and the AI component just breaks it down and creates the operations manual procedure step by step of what you just described, like for you.
So you're talking about the transcript. So you basically just export the transcript and then clean it up a little, and you've got
Yeah. You don't even have to export the video tool is doing it now inside the tool.
Got it.
And there's another tool designed specifically for this that's, we use sometimes. It's called Scribe How, and you hit record, and when you're done, it takes all the screenshots from your video. It takes them into screenshots. It maps out, here's what you did in these steps and processes, copy and paste, and you now have your ops manual.
Wow. I mean, and that's so much simpler than I think a lot of folks imagine when they think about the task of creating SOPs and tutorials and things like that.
Yeah. And you can go to AI tools now. We play around with all the tools a lot because I feel like it's my job too. Mm-hmm. So I've gone into ChatGPT and be like, okay, create a process for what a team member should do before they go out on PTO, and include a checklist of the task at the end. And it spits the thing out, and it's pretty good first draft, right? Like I'm always going to review it, maybe make some changes, but it works.
And that saves a bunch of time. Even if it's 80% or even 50% right, great. That gives you a launching off point, saves you all that time.
Right.
Are there any tasks or things that you don't systematize, that you avoid?
I don't know. That's a good question. Do you have any?
For a while, it was we avoided meeting scripts because I didn't want it to feel too kind of stuffy.
Yeah.
But I eventually did them for one specific project, just kind of as a test. And I was like, nobody's going to use this. And I think part of the SOP and system stuff, as the person who is, saying, hey, you guys are going to do this, I think part of my fear has been, well, is it too restrictive? Am I making this workplace more difficult? Which is not always bad, but it's kind of something I'm thinking about, since part of my vision is to create a place that people look forward to going to work at. And what's interesting is actually this week or last week, one of our team members was like, "Hey, can we create meeting scripts for the rest of the meetings that we have? Because those are awesome. I've been using them."
See?
And I was like, "Okay, no way." So now I'm, kind of rethinking those SOPs and systems pieces, and I don't know. I don't think that there are anything that I would at this point avoid, systematizing.
And even if it's not like script, right? People might think, well, you're going to sound robotic. I mean, we have meeting agendas, meeting talking points, agenda, right? Yeah. Like it's like, hey, these are the things we need to cover. And, I'm a big fan. Like I read the checklist manifesto years ago. I mean, I've read a lot of the business books. I won't say all of them, but I feel like I'm always reading them. And, what they say makes sense. Like when you have that checklist in front of you, it allows your brain to free up and think about the bigger picture things or the more important things. And so my dad was a pilot. He flew like a small plane. And whenever I would fly with him, he had this checklist of when you take off and when you land. And every time he had that checklist memorized. He could sit here right now. He hasn't flown in a while because he's retired. He could probably sit here right now and tell you everything on that checklist. And yet every time I watched him take it out and he was going to go through it. And he actually told me one time, one of his friends forgot to put the wheels down and landed, which is not a way you want to land the plane, right? Yeah. Because it's like, oh, let me go through the motions, and then you miss a step. Whereas if you just have the checklist up in front of you, you're not going to miss a step. And then, especially when we're doing that for the low level kind of task, it lets us think about those bigger picture things that are important, that require that's why I also tell my lawyers, like, AI is not coming for your job yet. I mean, not in our lifetime, because it can give us information, but it can't give us that experience of, okay, I've seen this case 1,000 times, and based on all the things you're telling me, this is the advice I would give. Like, it can tell us, here's the law, here's the different options, but we still, right now, there's still a lot of human in what we do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of folks still, and even when AI can do more, I think people appreciate the human element. Yeah. It is pretty great for the memes. I think that's, the image generation these days is getting pretty funny. But, we use systems a lot for avoiding mistakes, like you're saying, with a person who's flown, probably hundreds or thousands of times, forgetting to put the landing gear down. A lot of our systems and processes, we have every single task that needs to happen to design and build a website, we have laid out with instructions in Asana. And a significant percentage of those came from mistakes or something that was missed, on previous projects. And so at the end of every project, we do a debrief and we look through it, how could we have done this better? And we add those to the project template, or we update the instructions, or we update the SOPs. And maybe there was something that the person who wrote it thought was clear and the person who was reading it misinterpreted. You know? But I think a lot of it really comes down to, like what you said at the beginning here, was the consistent client experience. And I saw recently that somebody I think they had AI evaluate, hundreds or thousands of chess matches. And they looked through the statistics, and what they realized is nobody wins chess. Somebody just loses. And it's through a small mistake, either not seeing an opportunity that was there, or making the mistake and the other person does see the opportunity. And I haven't stopped thinking about that since I learned that. Nobody actually I think business is like that. I think businesses, you can catch good opportunities and stuff, but there's plenty of opportunities out there. I think it was David Packard who said businesses die of indigestion of too many opportunities rather than starvation of too few.
Yes. We always say that. We say, we don't need new ideas. We got plenty of ideas. We just need to execute on the ones we have.
Right. Yeah. We just got it. And I think it's really the mistakes that get us in the business world.
Yeah.
Well, so we've gone through your system, your process here with clients. I've learned a lot. I've already got a few things I'm going to go change as soon as we're done here. Any kind of final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I don't know. Have fun, right? Like,
yeah.
And we are going to make mistakes, and it is going to be hard, and we're, and I think that's part of it, and giving ourselves some grace to do those things. Like, it's not going to be perfect, and unfortunately, but there's help too. Like, you don't have to do this alone. Like, having these conversations, obviously I'm a big fan of having a business coach. It's what we do for a living, but there's real value to having a community. So even if you're not going to go hire a business coach, like, do you have some trusted advisors that you can go to that are maybe colleagues or friends or other business owners that you can really talk some of this through with, because it is hard, and it's just your brain. And what's the saying? Like, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. That's what a coach does. It helps you kind of see the bigger picture and helps you process and think through your options. Because I think at the end of the day, like, I had this epiphany once where I was like, business owners don't sleep due to lack of confidence. I think we're just so nervous. We're like, are we making the right decisions? Are we seeing those missed opportunities in the chess match? Like, what are we not thinking about? Is this the right decision? So I think we sleep a lot better at night when we can just feel, assured in our decisions and what we're doing. And I mean, not to be depressing, but like, you're never going to have it all figured out. So maybe, again, give yourself some grace. You're where you are. You're right where you need to be. And there's help, and you take the next step and you figure that out and keep moving.
Love that. So where can lawyers find you? They say, hey, I need Stephanie and her team's help.
Yeah. I mean, our site is lawyerist.com. So lawyerist.com. I'm Stephanie at lawyerist.com. We have a podcast, like you said. We have the book. We have a lot of places where people can get a lot of help and a lot of free content, which we love doing. And I always like talking to people. I tell people, don't be afraid to reach out. I'm a real person. Like, whatever, just email me. We'll figure it out.
Awesome. And what's the name of your podcast?
The Lawyerist Podcast. Real original.
Easy. Okay, great. So lawyerist.com, Lawyerist Podcast. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for the conversation today, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast. If you need help with your website or marketing, go to clearbrand.com. You can schedule a free strategy call with one of our consultants, or take advantage of our free resources to help you write, design, or implement a better website and marketing.